Big Questions with the Dead Milkmen.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Big Questions with the Dead Milkmen. This week, the question is, what are your favorite songs about time? Choose up to 3 and tell us about them. So, does anybody really know what time it is? As we all know, the times they are a-changin'. And some days it feels like the first time. But as the Chamber Brothers once said, the time has come today to talk about songs about time. And just maybe by the end of this episode, you'll ask us to do that to me one more time. The first song I would like to talk about is a song called Sign o' the Times by Prince, which is off of his album of the same name. It came out in 1987. And the reason I chose this song was I love the minimalism of the recording. It's basically a drum machine, which I think is a Lindrum and M1, and it has a simple bass line and some basic funk guitar and some simple synth pads and things, and Prince's voice. And the lyrics are just as valid today as when the song was released back in the late 80s, talking about social issues and crime and drugs on the street and people having problems. So it's a song that has lasted the test of time. And the second song, I only have 2 tonight. I didn't choose 3. The second song I want to talk about is a song by the band called Chicago called 25 or 624. It was written by Robert Lamb, who was a founding member of the group. I guess they were originally called the Chicago Transit Authority, and then they changed their name to just Chicago. It was from 1969, their second album, which was called Chicago. And he said that the song was about trying to write a song in the middle of the night. And the title of the song is basically he was up in the middle of the night. It was either 25 or 26 minutes before 4 a.m., which is where the title comes from of the song. And because of the unique phrasing of the song, 25 or 64, it's been interpreted to mean things over the years. Somebody thought that it might mean a quantity of illegal drugs, or maybe it was the name of a famous person in some kind of a code. It was actually banned in Singapore for the alleged drug reference. I have loved this song since high school simply because the drums were cool on it. They were played by their drummer named Danny Seraphine. And of course, the band Chicago is also responsible for the song, Does Anybody Really Know What Time It Is? So those are the 2 songs that I wanted to mention tonight. There's lots of songs out there about time. I'm interested to hear what everybody else wants to talk about.
Hey, Dean, do you remember that god-awful remake that Chicago did of 250621 back in like the 80s?
Yeah, they did re-record it.
Oh, it was bad. There's a video too. It's bad.
Okay, I don't remember the remake.
High school kids fleeing in a weird dystopian world. It's gloriously bad. Now you made me also think of the John Mulaney thing when he used to say, back in my day, we had real rappers like Flavor Flav. He would come out and say, who knows what time it is? And we knew he knew what time it was because he had a clock around his neck. During my research for this, I stumbled upon something, and I don't know if you guys stumbled upon it in your research too. If you did, if we all stumbled upon it, I'll have to share my Nobel Prize money with you. But I realized this: songs about time have changed as our understanding of time has changed. In other words, if you look at earlier songs about time, they have, back when we thought time was a fixed, rigid thing, they're all about the clock, the length of the workday. And then as we get into understanding of the fluidity of time, how basically if you're around a black hole, time functions differently. Then the songs get a lot trippier. And I think the middle ground there is Pink Floyd's Time, which has the clock sound, but it's a very trippy song. So I just like to say, I like my pop songs to be as scientifically accurate as possible. It's a rule for me. I just like that. If somebody out there could write a song, which we call like you can know where my heart is or how fast it's beating, but you can't know both, I'd be very happy with that. That would make me see. I'm often called the scientist of the band by myself. Nobody else calls me that. Okay, getting to my two songs. My first song is a song. I've got two songs by the same band, and the band is V&V Nation. And the first song is a song called Space and Time off of the album Automatic, which I'm going all the way back to 2011 for that one. Normally, if somebody gives me a song before like 2000, I'm like, does that they sing it on the chuck wagon on their way across the Great Plains? But this is a great song because it's somebody in a fixed space and time, and they're looking backwards. And they're looking backwards on their life. And I like that idea. I like the idea of someone in a fixed space and time looking back. And I use it as a reminder not to get hung up on the past. So if I find myself thinking a lot about the past and stuff, I sort of think about the song Space and Time and how basically the guy says, I am lost in space and time. And, standing here looking back in time. And I think, don't get hung up on the past. So I do that. Now, even though I don't get hung up on the past, another reason why I love this song, because it reminds me of, again, it's called Space and Time. And when I was a little kid, like 3 or 4 years old, my mom used to chase me and my older sister around the house singing, it's about time, it's about space, it's about time to slap your face, which is, for those of you who are younger than us, which is everybody, that was a theme song from an old show that my mom had riffed on. And we'll put the link to the old theme song. And the other great thing about V&V Nation's Automatic is it was a song based on future retroism, which meant that, or retrofuturism, which meant that these were people in the 20s and 30s who were looking to the future and thinking, by 1940, there'll be, super highways that cars will go through like pneumatic tubes and stuff. And they didn't get that future. And I often feel an empathy for that. So the next song that I'm going to mention, also by V&V Nation, but we're going to go a little bit forward in time to 2018. And this song is called When Is the Future? And I love it because it's just somebody walking through a city and, again, stuck in a fixed place and time, point. And he's looking into the future saying, when is the future? Which I do all the time. I'm like, why isn't it the future? Why I try to look constantly forward. I'm upset. I keep looking forward to my 60th birthday and waking up every day going, why am I not 60 yet? Why? I try to stay focused on the future. We didn't get the future we were promised. I don't know if anybody watching is familiar with the book, The End of History. It was a book that came out in the late 90s and said, hey, we've defeated all the bad guys and everything is going to be great going forward. And much like the people back in the 30s who didn't see World War II coming, we didn't see what was coming. And I just want that future. So whenever I'm singing When Is the Future, I'm always thinking about, when do we get the stuff that we were kind of promised, that bright, glorious future in the late 90s that people were kind of sell to us. I always try to look forward to that point. But it's also why I always say lyrics are important, because the lyrics in these two songs are fantastic. And I think they're what I call bookend songs. They're both the same thing. One guy's in a fixed point looking back, another one in a fixed point looking forward. And now when I write songs, after I write a song, I try to write a bookend song for it. So I'll write a song and then I'll go and try to do sort of a twist on it, maybe from a different perspective or just, play on that. But it's a fun exercise to do. And you get two songs for the price of one. So there's that. So those are my two. My two are Space and Time and When Is the Future.
I chose the Jim Croce song, Time in a Bottle. In which he wishes that he could save time in a bottle, which is not scientifically possible, but it's kind of poetically beautiful. The first phrase of the song is, if I could save time in a bottle, the first thing I'd like to do is to save every day until eternity passes away, just to spend them with you. So it's a love song, and he wrote it, I believe, for his wife. And later in the song, he also contemplates about how there's not enough time to do the things you want to once you realize what it is you want to do. So time is limited, and it's in a way kind of prophetic for Jim Croce's life, because before because he died in a plane crash. I don't know if you know that, but he died before that song, before he could see that song become a hit. It actually went up to #1 in 1973, I think, or whenever it was. I think he died in 1973 at the end of the year. So that's my #1 song about time. I really like that song. I think it's beautiful. And another song I chose is Time Has Come Today, which Dean alluded to in the introduction. It's by the Chambers Brothers. I also know it by the Ramones. And it's kind of a psychedelic song. To the time, that song is like an action song. Now is the time that they think about. Now's the time that things get done. It's always what is now, really, and that's another philosophical thing. But they actually say now, they mentioned getting burned up in the sun, and they've been psychedelicized, and I don't know, it's a pretty cool song. It's got a long section where all they do is say time, and it gets slowed down. So even musically, they're playing with time. And I actually chose 3 songs, and my third one is Out of Time. I'll be brief. Out of Time by the Rolling Stones. And in that case, time refers to the time that you can have with, I guess, Mick Jagger, whoever's singing the song. The girl that he's singing to, he no longer wants in his life. She left him, and then she wanted to come back, and he said, no way, you're out of time. Or maybe it could also mean out of sync. You're not cool enough to be with us anymore. I don't know. Can't be in our social world. And I just think that song is catchy.
Time has come today, but today is a sort of human construct. So disqualified. Disqualified.
I also chose 3 songs, and one of them was also Out of Time by the Rolling Stones.
Well, I'm sorry.
Don't be.
Well, you can still talk about it.
Yeah, I'm going to. That song, it's funny, I've known that album, Aftermath, for a long time. And that song didn't really stand out until like 2020. And I was still working through the pandemic, and I don't know what it was, but I was listening to that album when I was like painting a lot, and I kept repeating that song, and I didn't realize how prophetic it was at the time, but it ended up being kind of relevant to my life. But Joe already kind of gave us a rundown of what the song's about. So another song I chose was the song Time Won't Let Me by the Outsiders. And no particular like sentimental connection. I just think it's catchy as hell. I get it stuck in my head all the time. All the time. I feel like I'm always running out of time. And so even though it's like he's saying time won't let me, because he's like waiting for this girl, I guess, presumably, to make up her mind about being in a relationship. And he's just saying, the first line is, I can't wait forever. So yeah, it's just catchy. And it was I always thought they were a British band for some reason, because it's got a very like British invasion sound, but they are from Cleveland. And in some of my research, I discovered they were actually started in 1958. So they were kind of like ahead of the curve.
We used to cover that song in our early days.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. Yeah. On a semi-regular basis.
Just proves my point. As time moved along, songs about time got trippier and more freaky.
Wow. The third song I chose was also a Rolling Stones song. It's called Time Is on My Side. And it's actually, you know what? It's not written by them. So technically, I didn't choose 2 Rolling Stones songs. And it was written by Norman Mead, a.k.a. Jerry Ragavoy, Jimmy Norman. And there are a couple cover versions, or a couple versions before the Rolling Stones version came out. And then they actually recorded 2 versions. One became a #1 hit in the United States, and it doesn't have the guitar in the intro. I'm not sure I've heard this version. I'm gonna have to look it up. But that song, I don't know. That's another one that gets stuck in my head a lot. I feel like I'm always running out of time. So the word time, I have this thing in my head with if I connect something going on with any kind of lyric, I'll either sing it out loud or it's just in my head and the song will be stuck in my head. But I don't know. Another one that's like really catchy. And I think it's got a good message because, there's nothing we can do about time. It just keeps slipping by. But it also is how we heal. So I think that's maybe what they're referring to. Because again, it's about like a woman, like I guess, Mick Jagger's lover or something, one of them. Because she's trying to get back with him too, maybe. And now I'm confusing the two songs. I don't know. But yeah, so those are my 3 songs.
Why would Norman change his name or whatever it was from something that was sort of rock and roll to something less rock and roll?
Jerry,
that's like saying, my name's Johnny Rock, but I'm changing it to Maury Lipschitz so I can enter the rock and roll industry.
Thanks everybody. Those are great. There's a lot of songs out there about time, and we chose some good ones. It's time now for recommendations. It's the recommendation time part of our show. And I would like to recommend this week a YouTube channel called Never Too Small. This channel features short videos showcasing small apartments from around the world, usually presented by the interior designer or the architects who are responsible for these small apartments. And the reason I like it is they're not too long. They're maybe 15 minutes long tops. And I like to see the ingenuity and the cleverness to the solutions that they come up with for living in small spaces. So check out a YouTube channel called Never Too Small.
A lot of my relatives used to live in like small miniature houses. They were called shacks. Right? It's like you'll never be able to afford a big home. Here, figure out where to put your shit. I'm just going to start out this week. I've got to do it. Finn, you can turn a rainy day into rainbows and sunshine. For some of you watching this, keeping up with current events isn't part of your brand, and I can understand that. I can't really understand that, but we have to sell records, so I have to pretend to be nice. But if you're not a news person, this last week, there's some stuff you want to go back and revisit because it was freaking bonkers. It started out with Lieutenant Governor of Tennessee, a man who's been responsible for a lot of anti-LGBTQ plus laws, a man by the name of Rand McNally, not Randy McNally. Randy's the important part, not to be confused with Rand McNally. He got caught. He's like 79 years old. And again, Lieutenant Governor of Tennessee, he got caught in the Instagram thirst trap of a 20-year-old gay man. And I know some of you watching this are like, wait a minute, an anti-LGBT plus politician had some secret gay feelings? The next thing you're going to tell me is that the Ace family really didn't own that mansion. The Ace family really didn't own that mansion. That's just it. You might have heard about, some of you probably heard about Randy. They had even had a little blip on Saturday Night Live. I didn't think the story was going to take off, so I started writing a bit about it. But if you don't know about Randy McNally, you're going to want to jump headfirst into that story because it is bonkers. It is absolutely amazing. If you do know about him, also, you're going to just want to check out, if you haven't seen it, the Channel 5 interview. It is comedy gold. He's sweating. He's just profusely sweating, and they're asking him questions like, well, now you did see all of this thing that they hit the like button on. Well, I didn't see where it said weed, but you did see prostitute. Maybe I saw a prostitute. It is so good. And everything that was issued, every statement issued on it is pure gold, how he just liked to encourage people. So that is amazing. And then after that happened, I became familiar with Mr. Charles Sutherland. We're going to put up, I became familiar with him because of his mugshot. So we're going to put the mugshot up now. This is the first thing I saw just scanning through the news, I saw the mugshot, and then I had to get the backstory. So the mugshot is Mr. Sutherland had been previously arrested for spray painting the word groomer on libraries. So after they arrested him, they said, "Can we search your home?" And Charles said yes. So here we go. A search of Sutherland's home found numerous diapers, children's dolls, and a child-sized doll in Sutherland's bed. So he's currently getting a little extra time for kiddie porn. So, and then I thought, well, it's not going to get crazier. And then Jordan Peterson did that tweet where he retweeted that thing from the British porn site, but he believed it was a Chinese sperm milking factory. You won't see links to these people. You're going to have to do the deep dive yourself, because there's no way we could give you links and then still be on YouTube. So, so that happened. I'm just sitting there going, how? And then the Dominion lawsuit turned up the memo on Kimberly Guilfoyle, who some of you call Kimberly Tinfoil, and that's not nice. But it turned up why she was fired, the inside reason from Fox why she was fired. And this is totally Cinemax in the 90s at 2 a.m. It is, like when there would be two women in the office and one of them would go, I need your professional opinion on these. And then, but in this case, the other woman was smart and ran out of the office and got a lawyer. It is this week. And I stopped writing these on Tuesday. I had a bunch of work yesterday and today. I'm like almost afraid to open up the news. And again, with all that, slap fighting is gone from TBS. So I'm spent from this week.
I'd like to recommend a book about time that I actually got from Dean for Christmas, but thank you. It was a good choice. It was really fun to read. It's by a theoretical physicist named Carlo Rovelli, whose specialty happens to be quantum gravity, and he explains in it why the notion of continuous time is a false one, as Rodney mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. And it's, if you want to know more about what scientists think time is, or the fact maybe they don't think it exists at all, give it a read. That's all I have.
Okay. I'd like to recommend Woods, who looks like young Brian Jones.
He does.
It looks more like Adam Rich from 8 is Enough. 8 is enough to fill our lives with love. A woman from my hometown was on that show. I tell you.
But yeah, Woods is an incredibly talented musician, songwriter. I've been in a couple bands with him over the years, and something just popped up on YouTube, like a video that he did recently, and I'll recommend that too. It's called Slow Children at Play, which deals with time. Yay. But he also has a band. Well, he has had a band with his solo work that he has. We'll put a link to Bandcamp page of his. But yeah, check out his stuff. He's I love him. Not just because he's my cousin.
And happy birthday, Hal Linden. We should end the show like they used to end the dating game, where they would do that kiss, but they had a serial killer on the dating game whose name was Rodney, oddly enough. Mwah.